Music, love life. This is Business Express. Got a special guest joining us this morning, and would love for you to be a part of the conversation as well. WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. We're also streaming live up on our YouTube channel. It's Smooth981 FM. We're talking about a Senate seeking 2.7 trillion naira agricultural budget allocation. Got a special guest joining us this morning. Our guest is Oyinkansola Aregbesola. She's an investment research analyst from ARM. Good morning, Oyinkansola. Welcome to Business Express.
Good morning to you too. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, so I want to start off with the Senate and this request from the chairman of the Senate Committee on Agriculture. What do you make of this request asking for 10% to be applied of the budget to be applied to agriculture?
I think requesting for more budget allocation to the agricultural sector is not exactly out of place. I mean, agriculture is a critical sector that needs more attention than it has been given in the past, especially if we want to, as a nation, diversify our revenue source. So I would say that that request is actually not out of place because this is actually the time to look to diversify our income as a nation, not just depend on oil. And if we want to improve, that part of the sector, it will mean that we need to, spend more in terms of infrastructure, and the likes on in that sector.
Okay. There obviously are a lot of issues that have faced the sector. Is allocating a lot more money going to, in some way, automatically fix these issues?
Well, allocating more money would be a step in the right direction, although a major plague of the sector is actually insecurity. So basically, government needs to deal with the insecurity first, and because there won't be any noticeable progress in the sector if, for example, farmers are attacked frequently when they go to farm, or they are simply afraid to go to farm, due to the insecurity issues. So I will point that insecurity takes dealing with insecurity rather takes priority. In the order of things, then we can now talk about increasing budget allocation to the sector. And so I think what I would actually applaud, the government, in doing at this time is the fact that they allocated about, I think, 12% to defense and security. So that's a step in the right direction.
All right. Well, let us know what your thoughts are. If you've got a question or a comment, you can send them through via WhatsApp at 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 as well. Um, what do you think generally, though, of agriculture as an investment? Are there, really good returns?
Well, agriculture is, all agricultural goods, specifically, they're essential to the nation's economy. I mean, many companies cannot run without them, and of course, people cannot feed themselves. So, if we look at the recently released GDP reports, Q3 GDP reports by the National Bureau of Statistics, we saw that that particular sector contributed about 29.31% to the total GDP. So yes, it's a critical sector, and I do believe that there are good returns in the sector if done properly. Of course, factors such as maybe climate conditions, market fluctuations, and access to finance, and like I mentioned previously, insecurity, could impact returns. But barring or all these negative shocks, it's a really good investment.
Now, when we're looking at the sector, a lot of eyes and a lot of the expectations are on the government, but should the government be the only entity basically to increase or improve the outputs? What about the private sector?
All right. Both the government and the private sector, play a crucial role in boosting agricultural outputs in Nigeria. So Of course, the government's role is pivotal in creating an enabling environment through supportive policies, infrastructural development, and investment in research and development. Policies that facilitate access to credit, for example, or provision of subsidies when necessary, or and promotion of sustainable agricultural practice, can significantly impact the sector positively. However, the private sector is equally important. Private investment can bring innovation, efficiency, and market approaches to agriculture. So I would say that a collaborative effort between the government and the private sector is essential for the sustainable growth of the agricultural sector in Nigeria.
All right, thank you for that, Oyinkansola. You're listening to Business Express on Smooth 98.1. Do stay with us. Show continues. What's your chair? So we'll need you to. Oh, so have you sent the message? This is where I hit the stream. So we'll need you to kind of stretch out the answers a bit more.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks. Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. This is Business Express. And we're talking about, of course, the agricultural sector and the Senate's request seeking 10% of the budget going to agriculture. Our guest this morning is an expert, Oyinkansola Aregbesola. She's an investment research analyst from ARM. If you've got a question or comment, WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. So moving to the banking sector. Now, the CBN has removed the 2% processing fee on deposits over 500,000 naira for individuals, and I think it's 3% for firms as well. What is the likely impact of this?
All right. I think the removal is likely to lead to increased liquidity in banks. Basically, encouraging more customers, deposit their money with the banks, and that would definitely affect liquidity level, for the banks. And secondly, I feel like it also, probably, boosts boost customers' confidence in a sense of, the fact that there are basically no charges, you know, there are not charges on, deposits or deposit are, that are higher than a specific amount. And so confidence in the banking sector is, the likely, results. And it would also help stimulate investment and savings, and they'll potentially increase loan disbursements because if these banks, have enough money in that disposal, they're able to increase, loans given out to, to customers. I mean, basically, being that gap between um, the supply and then of course the demand side of the economy. I mean, more customers having surplus, being able to deposit that without penalties, and then customers that need loans are able to receive loan disbursements due to increased liquidity in the banks. However, it may also impact, bank profitability, as they lose fee-based income. In the past, seeing how many of these banks have actually gained, from these policies in terms of fee-based income. So the likes of commissions that the banks received, previously on this, would it will actually mean that they'll have to forfeit that, and that may probably impact their profitability.
Mm.
And
Okay, so what do you think needs to happen for deposits in Nigerian banks to grow? Is this like an all-round economic growth that increases wealth?
Well, several factors, can contribute to the growth of deposit in Nigerian banks. And indeed, just like you have said, it is basically an all-round economic growth. It's a significant driver, and some key considerations are the economic growth of the country. I mean, if we're seeing slow growth in the economy, that would also feed into deposits or higher deposits in Nigerian banks, or basically will feed into the banking sector rather. And of course, the issue of financial inclusion. I mean, there are a lot of people that probably don't even have bank accounts, and so if financial inclusion is being driven, and we have more unbanked people, joining that banking space, would see growth in deposits in Nigerian banks, and of course, competitive interest rate is also key. Is also a factor. If, for example, if I can get higher interest rate elsewhere, why should I put my money in the bank? Stuff like that. So, competitive interest rate is also key, and a stable banking system.
Now, speaking about interest rates, what needs to happen to bring them down, really?
Um, a comprehensive approach, that addresses macroeconomic stability or regulatory policies, the banking sector health, and structural reforms is necessary to bring down interest rates for lending in Nigeria. But particularly on the central bank's monetary policy angle, saying that really the CBN would actually need to adjust its monetary policy rates downward, and we could see lower lending rates to the banking sector, because the MPR, that's the monetary policy rate, it's basically like the official interest rate of the CBN, which anchors all other interest rates in the money market and the economy. And we've seen over time that this particular rate is being increased, in every of their meeting, to address inflation. And because of the higher MPR, we've seen higher lending rates by this bank. So that would actually be like probably be like a first step in ensuring that interest rates are reduced.
Okay. So from an investment angle, is the banking and finance sector still attractive?
While the banking sector still holds some upside potential, basically we have seen over the past few months, policy shifts that has benefited the sector immensely, especially the FX valuation policy, for example, being a major source of gains recorded by the sector, and as well as the higher interest rate environment I mentioned earlier. Due to the higher interest rate environment, we've seen the banks benefit from that, and it's translated into higher net interest income in their books. And so, and of course, the recent FX valuation policy, you've seen them book gains, in their 6 months and 9 months financial statements. So, I mean, that has, spurred positive sentiment in that particular sector. But overall, um, I would say that that particular sector, or the banking sector rather, still holds some upside potential. And so I would say that this year has actually been a good one for the banking sector, and we should expect to see you know some upside potential like I mentioned earlier.
Okay, let's go on to the messages. Wahid says, where is the cash to deposit? ATMs are empty, and where available, you're limited to 20,000 or even 5,000. Same in the banking halls. So who really has the cash to deposit? Wrong priority for the CBN. Fine, Olu Boroko says, insecurity is a major setback to the agricultural sector. Check out how China is profiting big time from agriculture. We too can get to that level by first eradicating bandits using surveillance and attack drones, and also creating access roads to the villages where major agricultural activities are happening. Well, that is it for Business Express this morning. Thank you so much, Oyinkansola, for being on the show with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.